All right, what's good, YouTube? I got a pretty cool topic for you guys today. Somebody asked a pretty good question. A question that I hadn't even thought of myself. I should have been done this, but they asked me pretty much as a Patreon supporter. He was asking, well, what is the difference of being signed versus being indie or independent? And so I thought that was actually a really good question. So I'm gonna break down the difference between the two, like on a basic concept, and then kind of what I personally believe and what I kind of personally think about both topics. So we'll start with being signed. So being signed essentially means the way that it works from my experience, from what I've seen. Obviously, I'm not a signed artist or anything like that, but I've dealt with them obviously, and I've seen people. I've known people to get signed and things of that nature. But the way signing works is like this. So say I'm a rapper and I'm going to get signed to Capsule Corp's label, right? Capital Corp will sign me and will essentially give me a signing bonus, or the signing bonus is a front. So let's say they sign me and they give me $1 million, right? So I sign for $1 million. Boom. That $1 million is used for me personally to use for my projects. That's intended for me to take that million and buy beats, pay for recording sessions, album art, maybe get mixing and mastering done. Just doing the things to create myself as an artist and as a musician and put myself out there and go ahead and begin to get things promoted, plus put a little money in my pocket and kind of get me on the path of stardom pretty much, right? So essentially your signing bonus is a front. You have to pay that back. So when you get signed for $1 million, your label is going to want you to pay that $1 million back and then some, because they're going to want to make money off of you. So they're going to basically charge you interest essentially. So just like when you go to the bank and you get a loan for $5,000 and they have an interest rate attached to it, and let's say after you pay all your interest and all your payments, instead of paying $5,000, you pay $6,000 because the bank wants to make money for loaning you money and giving you a time frame to be able to pay that money back. So that's how that kind of works. So signing when you're fronted money up front, but you do in fact have to pay that back. So that comes in the form of you making albums, doing features, clothing stuff, commercials, whatever you do to create income and create revenue. That revenue, a small portion of it depending on how it's set up, but it's usually a smaller portion than bigger. That's why they're willing to give you such a bigger front up front. A small portion of that will go to you, but then the majority of that will go to paying all these people and the label and the people at hand that need to be paid. So lots of these artists aren't making a lot of money off of their music per se. Like they may make a lot of money off of the music when you see the numbers, but when you see, all right, the artist is making $1 million off of a project, but the label made $5 million off of the project, or however it goes, right? So that's kind of how like being signed works. Being signed also comes along with a lot of perks as well, which is why they do want to make that money back, and which is why they take a larger portion. So when you get signed, then you may have connections with other artists. So say you never could get a feature with Migos, right? Never could get a feature with Future, but now that you're signed, they're able to put you in the same place in the same space as these other artists, and you're able to intermingle, get together, create, and make something happen, and generate revenue that way because you're working with the artist. And now that you and that artist have created a song, now that song is valuable, and y'all can make some money off of that, right? But that would have never happened if you weren't signed, right? So that's essentially how artists work. So it's how being signed works. Same thing as far as promotional stuff goes. If you're signed, they may put you on the Hot New Hip Hop, on World Star, on all these other different music platforms, on different vlogs, on different YouTube pages and channels, getting you on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, all those things, and then getting you on added to playlists, getting you interviews, that type of things, getting appearances. They may set you up with commercials, like how Lil Yachty has a 360 deal, which is pretty much he's allowed to do any and everything that will create revenue. So Lil Yachty can go and be in a movie and get paid, and his label will get paid. He can be in a commercial like that Sprite commercial he had. He'll get paid, and his label will get paid. So it's not just strictly music. You have some labels that will sign you, and it's strictly like music oriented. So say you make music, but on the side, let's say you like working on art. and you make a lot of crazy art or something like that, and that's just kind of your thing. You can sell your art and do whatever you want with that because they only signed you for the music aspect of what you do. So being signed is essentially like it's like working for a company that it's like kind of like working for a it's like working for a car dealership or a major company. So if you're working at a car dealership, you don't buy the cars, you don't buy any of the inventory, you don't do any assessments on vehicles or anything like that. Essentially, what it is you're a person that they've hired. They'll give you money and pay you, but they have you out there making more money for for that car dealership than you make for yourself because you make more money for the label than you do for yourself technically, right? So they put the upfront cost. They're taking the bigger investment and the bigger risk when signing an artist. So that's why they're willing to give you a nice chunk of change, but they want to make sure they recoup that, and they may want to make sure they recoup that and then some. So that's what comes along with being signed. Now, independent is literally exactly the way it sounds. Independent, you have to do all these things yourselves. You got yourself. You have to front all these same things that I mentioned to you yourself. But again, but with being independent, you have total, complete control and freedom. Whereas being signed, you may be limited. So you could be signed, and they may allow you, hey, we want 10 albums out of you within this year, and that's it. We want 10 albums, and we're going to decide out of the 10 which two or three we're going to drop. The other albums we may or may not release, and we'll figure that out. But you can't release them and do anything with them until we give you the go ahead or the say so or however it may work. Whereas indie is if you're independent, you can make 10 albums and drop 10 albums in one day. You can drop them through the course of the year. You can drop one every month or however you want to do it. It doesn't really matter. You have complete and total control. However, if you're indie, you may not have the connections to get on the World Star or the Hot New Hip Hop or on the YouTube pages and blog pages that you need to. You may not be able to get into the studio and get connected with the Migos or Future or other artists or whoever else it is in your genre or in your style that you want to work with. You may not be able to get into that connection. Now, let's say you are able to get to that, you will have to come out of pocket and pay in full for that. Whereas if you're signed, they may just facilitate the whole thing happening. You may never even have to pay for that personally out of pocket. They may just make it happen. We'll put this artist in the studio with this artist. We want y'all to make music together. Boom, goes from there. Whereas indie, it may not work like that because you have to create those connections. So you may have to personally be in the studio and bump into Future or Amigos or Drake or whoever whatever artist it would make sense in your this scenario. Um, I me personally, I like the indie style of music. Reason being, you have full creativity and full creative control. One other thing that goes along with that is if you're an independent indie artist, you have all rights to all your music. The only things that you may not have rights to is maybe how you guys have worked out how you want to do beats. Just because you didn't work, you don't have a producer agreement between you and the producer, or you got to work that out, or whatever the case is. That's really about the only thing you don't have control over, and that's only because you have another person involved. Whereas being signed, that same scenario can happen, but your label takes care of it. So like when I was dealing with artists and they were signed, the reason that I was able to have these songs out that you guys listen to, like Wave One and Two, although they're taken down now, these artists flagged them. Um, I could do whatever I want with those songs because they didn't have producer agreements at all whatsoever. So they weren't able to tell me no, you can't have this song. We have the right to have this song because they didn't have any type of producer agreement, right? So there's pros and cons to both. The main pro to being indie is your freedom. The main con to being indie is you might have that lack of money or that lack of revenue or that lack of connection. The main pro for being signed is you may have the connections, you may have the money, and you may be able to kind of open up doors that you never could. But the downside to that is you may not have that freedom. So you hear about artists all the time talking about they have albums that they want to drop and release and they can't simply because they're signed and their label has a lot of stuff or a lot of hoops and loops that they want them to jump through before they actually do it. Lots of times when you're signed, you can have your projects held hostage. You can be shelved. You know what I'm saying? And by shelved, I mean like you and the label are kind of at odds ends, and they won't give you the go ahead to release any new music. So they kind of essentially just kind of push you off on the back burner and kind of let your fizz kind of die down, and your your bubble stop to bubbling as much, and then they then they kind of cut you loose from the from that label. So there's pros and cons to both. It depends on what you kind of are looking for. I highly suggest that most artists stay indie as long as they possibly can and be independent, because you have more creative control over your music. And also too, when you stay indie and you kind of create that uptick in popularity, and people are watching you and really listening to you, you can create you as you get more popular, you create more leverage for yourself. So let's say you're an indie artist and you got a couple little hits here and there, you got some projects out, but you're like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like I'm this close to being a mega star and about to blow and pop. Let's just say you're on the lower end of that scale. You may not be able to have that capability. You may not you may need that extra bump or that extra push by being signed. But if you're not signed and you're doing everything indie, it may take you a little bit longer to get where you're at. Whereas if you're signed, then you may get there a little bit quicker, but it may cost you a little bit more in the end, because you have to give up more of your rights, or things of that nature, or you have to pay people back essentially from the front, or whatever the case is. But like I say, I suggest that you stay indie as long as possible, because it creates more leverage. Just like if you're on a scale of 1 to 10 on a two, but which is, let's say that's still really good for you to be at a two because you're on somebody's radar. Versus if you continue to stay indie, you might be bump up to a five or a six. Now you have more leverage to for if you're solicited by a label for, and they want to sign you. It's like, I'd love to sign with you guys, but it's, I got a lot of good stuff going on my own. I'm able to do X, Y, and Z. I got this artist working with me and rocking with me. I can go to this engineer and he's always doing my stuff. I got these different producers and artists that's making art for me. Like, what can you provide that's more than what I'm already providing for myself? And you have more of a leg to stand on. Whereas if you don't have those things quite in order, while as an indie artist, you're just kind of bubbling and you just got a lot of attention, but you don't know what to do, where to go with it. Then they have more of a reason to. You have less of a leg to stand on, and that label will come in like, "Hey, it doesn't seem like you got everything all kind of worked out. We can fix that for you." So personally, I like the indie route because of the freedom. Whereas, again, with the signed route, you get more pushed out there, but you may not have so much the freedom. So, like I say, there's pros and cons to both. You kind of got to decide what you want to do and what's more comfortable for you, what's going to work for you as the artist. But as long as you can stay independent and get the same things done that you're looking to get done, ride that coattail out for as long as you can, because I think that helps artists more so than anything, because you can put your own music out there and put it on streaming platforms easily without having a label involved. You can get the promotion, you can get on these different blogs and these pages, and get on the YouTube pages. You can set up your own interviews and everything. You may have to come out of pocket and pay for these things, which may be at a greater expense than if your label does it, obviously. But if you're able to do it and create that revenue and begin this cycle of doing your own thing, you can pocket all of this money. I know people hate on him a lot, but that one, the what's his name? The just slips my mind. The rapper, the guy that he's independent, and they always talk about him. What's that guy's name? He makes his own beats. Russ, the guy Russ. People hate on him and talk trash about him from when he first started bubbling and popping. But you gotta think this guy created a big network of followers and a cult following behind him, and he was literally whatever money he made, it came straight to him. So people could have hated on him at the time all they wanted, but he was making a lot more money than a lot of these signed artists than what you would think, because he was doing everything himself, putting his own music out, making his own production, engineering himself, that type of stuff. He kept a lot of money in house, so he probably made a lot of money. I think J. Cole is another artist that stayed independent for quite some time and blew up, and was able to retain a lot of money. So, you know, I think the indie route in the long term is probably better. But if you can find a good label and you get a good deal and they're willing to help you out and work with you and it's a fair deal, you really can't go wrong with that. As long as you have your still creative freedom, you have the rights to your music. Never, and I mean never, never sign over a full rights to any of your music. Say I'm a rapper, I make a big hit, I sign all my rights over to my label. My label could drop me tomorrow and still promote and push this music and make every single penny off of it and not pay me anything. So don't ever give up full rights on anything. I've had artists that their labels would try to basically get full rights off of a song from me, from the beats and everything, and in the paperwork, oh, we'll give you $1,500 for the beat. Well, that's great, but I'm giving up full rights. So if I make $1,500 off of this beat, and say such and so hops on this beat, and they make $3 million in total, and let's say they pay the artist whatever he gets paid, everybody else gets paid, but in total this song made $3 million. Don't you wouldn't you like to see a little bit more than that $1,500 if you know in total this song has revenue $3 million, $4 million, five, whatever the number is, and it may not even be that high, man. It could be higher, it could be lower, whatever the case is. But just look at it from that perspective, that if you give up full rights, or you sign all your rights away, or you sign with the label and it's a bad deal, you're missing out on a lot that you could potentially be getting. And I don't think a lot of artists realize that, because everybody hears in their head, "Oh, I got signed. I want to get signed. Signing this, sign," and it sounds great because you might get your signing bonus. You get get that front of $1 million, 2 million, 3 million, whatever it is. But you have to pay that back. Me giving you $1 million, I might as well go ahead and tell you you're $1 million in debt. Do you want to be $1 million in debt, or do you want to not have that type of debt and you can create your own money? So like I say, it's pros and cons of both. I'm not saying one's technically better than the other, but in my personal opinion, I feel like being indie as long as you can is better for the artist. I'm not saying signing is bad at all. I'm just saying create yourself some attention and get you to the point to where you've stayed indie long enough to where when somebody solicits to you, hey, we want to sign you, that you have a foot to stand on and some leverage to be like, hey, if you want to sign me, that's cool, but this is what I want. I want this, and this, and this is how I want it to be. And you have that leg to stand on because you've already established yourself as an independent artist, to where it's like, I kind of don't need you, but your extra push would help. Versus, all right, I really do need you because I don't know what's going on, what I'm doing, and I just got started in this, and I don't know. So let me sign so the label can take care of everything. Cool. We're going to be the label. We're going to take care of everything, but we're also going to take a lot of that money as well. We're going to keep that. So that's all I got for you guys. I want to keep it kind of short and sweet. A little 17-minute video. Hope you guys enjoy your Sunday. Again, this video topic is signing versus being independent. So that's pretty much the basics. I didn't want to go too in depth in in either one, but I could really go through each one and really explain one. But I think I kind of gave you a basic structure and a basic breakdown of how it is and how it works. I'll probably go over in another video more in depth what it's like being signed or a signed artist, how contracts kind of work when you're signed and whatnot. Because I still have some of the contracts that I've been emailed before, so I could kind of go over those and tell you guys about that as well. And then I can show you some different contracts that I did with artists when the beats were bought, and we did things like that as well too. So that's just how I see it. I think if you stay indie as long as possible is probably the best for you. And if you can stay indie forever, that's even better. Like that's great. But there's nothing wrong with signing if you have a good deal. So that's all I got for you guys. It's a little bit longer of a video, but not too bad. Follow me on all my social media. Milan Makes Beats. If I got it, you find me. If I don't, you won't. Milan Makes Beats on everything. That's really it, man. Like the video, dislike the video if you dislike it. But either which way, just interact with the video so the algorithm works in my favor. And that's all I got for you guys, man. That's really about it. So you guys enjoy your Sunday, and we'll get back together next Sunday. Peace.